Good evening all, welcome to Today interview. It's Bilgute Tumundimril. Today we have invited Mr. Okamoto Hiroshi. He's a Japanese grant program and education and emergencies manager of Save the Children in Mongolia. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So how are you? How's your day today?
Good, how are you? And thanks for having me today.
Thank you for coming and accepting our invitation.
Thanks for inviting us, yes.
So let's start talking about the recent projects that have been implemented from the Save the Children in Mongolia. What are the projects?
Okay, so we Save the Children in Mongolia has been operating for like 24 years. And currently we are working on mainly on two areas, education and child protection. And I'm an education person, and maybe I can share two big projects that I'm in charge of. And
so from the education perspective. Okay.
So one is the development, primary education project in Ulaanbaatar Gyal district. And the other one is the education in emergency for ZOT affected children.
ZOT affected
in
children.
Countryside. So two different areas and two different contexts. But they are somehow related because of ZOT, herders lose a lot of animals. And sometimes they migrate to the UB Gyal district.
Right.
So
that's
yeah,
how
we
they're connected.
look at the two different sides.
But in somehow they're interconnected.
Exactly.
Because of the cause that ZOT happens, and the children, they send the children to Gyal district to migrate to the urban life.
Yeah.
So why education? Why primary education?
So the primary education project in UB Gyal district is about supporting the first graders transition skill by training their surrounding people like teachers, non-teaching staff, and also parents. And those three groups we are training. We train them, and we also advocate the government from the beginning, so that after the project, some of the good best practices and outcomes can be handed over to the government.
So the project must be initiated from somewhere, right?
Yes.
So what's the data behind why primary education? You have to choose. Why not high school education, middle school education? Why primary?
Exactly. So why that? Good question, because needs of this project, several of them. First, Gyal district, and the living condition is very difficult. The lack of infrastructure, and population is very large. So the schools in Gyal district have like more than 2 or 3 shifts, or sometimes 4 shifts. So it's literally packed. So imagine that the environment of the school is pretty difficult, and also around 30% of children didn't go to the preschool education system. So they're not prepared enough. That's the like general.
That's the general.
But also we also identified that there was lack of capacity in teachers and non-teaching staff and parents to be able to support the first graders' transition skill. For example, like Mongolian teachers, they rotate from first grade to 5th grade and then go back to the first grade to teach. So they're not specialized in teaching the younger grade. But younger, those first graders need to learn how to communicate with others, how to adapt themselves to the school life, and also how to grab pencil and etc. etc. So they don't have a specialized training, and also non-teaching staff, they kind of separated from the teachers. So and also parents, despite their willingness to support their first graders, the new school year children, they don't know what to do, and they don't know how to collaborate with teachers and schools.
Right. So many aspects of around this problem. And who are the specialists that are training the teachers, the parents?
Also, so we project team, also like we have specialized staff. on specific component, teacher, non-teaching staff, and the parents. And we also, collaborated with the external consultant, and also with governments. So we kind of developed the training modules for teacher, non-teaching staff, and parents. And for each training module, we worked with actual target schools teachers and staff and parents to improve their knowledge, skills, and also apply those skills into practice.
So you guys are the chain connecting the two sides.
Exactly.
So you mentioned two projects,
Yes.
one in countryside, one in... what are the main objectives, the purpose and the outcomes?
So the project that I was mentioning about was the Geo District primary education. The main purpose is to nurture and strengthen the transition skills for first graders.
Right.
And then maybe I can talk about the second project.
Yes.
Okay. So ZOD is a slow onset disaster which consists of thick snow and an extremely cold winter, which kills a lot of animals. And the herders who depend on the animals, they lose main source of income, which affect their life and as well as their children's lives. And for the last 2 winters, supposedly ZOD happened, and then along with Mongolian government, many international organizations responded to ZOD.
Right.
But mainly what they did was helping the herders and animals. But we are the only one who looked at their children who go to their boarding school and living in the dormitory. So we supported them in mainly 3 things. Improving the learning and living condition on school and dormitory, and also providing the education continuity. Yeah, like providing extra classes for those who missed many classes, but because of helping their herders at home. And then lastly, we conducted training for disaster risk reduction, so that they can be prepared for not only ZOD but also other kind of disasters like fire, earthquake, and flood, and etc.
Can you mention some datas, some numbers to our audience? How many people are directly affected by the project?
Okay, so this emergency project, we targeted 6 provinces.
6 provinces.
6 provinces,
right.
and around 50 schools.
Around the countryside.
Yeah, 50. Yeah, 50 schools. So we target. I think more than 20,000 children benefited.
Wow.
And also like more than 2,000 and 3,000 teachers and staff.
That's quite a number.
And that's for emergency. And for the primary education that I was mentioning earlier, more than 65,000 children.
65,000 children in Ulaanbaatar.
In Ulaanbaatar. And 1,500 teachers, and 46,000 parents. That's a rough number that we reached out.
Wow, that's a quite good number. So about the project duration, has it finished already or is it still ongoing now?
So both of them are still ongoing, but they are finishing this March 2018.
Oh, next month?
Yes, next month. And then the primary education project duration was 3 years. And this emergency project, we had 3 phases because we had to develop new proposal because it's still emergency project. But luckily we had funding from Japan platform for this emergency project, and this has been ongoing for 2 years. And the primary project was funded by Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
So since you mentioned about the funding, I was going to ask about the structure that Save the Children is funded, especially projects in Mongolia. How are they funded? Are they mostly from the Japanese government or from the Japanese public? How does it work?
Well, good question. I think both, because Save the Children Mongolia is mainly led by Save the Children Japan. Headquarters in Tokyo, and but so the big chunk of fund is coming from the Japanese official, like meaning Japanese government, and also like for emergency, partially by Japanese government, but also there's an NGO network in Japan, which is funding some amount whenever the emergency happens. But we have to always justify to the donors. And also on the other hand, like we also have that some donation from individual corporate and also individual people who
in Japan or
in Japan.
In Japan.
Yes.
So in Mongolia, you guys are working in Mongolia.
Yes.
Can someone donate to your project from Mongolia? Some organization, Mongolian organization, or some individual from Mongolian individual.
Yes.
Yes, they can.
Yes, but unfortunately, the donation culture is still scarce in Mongolia, and compared to other countries, Japan is also a bit weak compared to other European and the United States.
Western.
Yeah, but still we have we managed to raise some funding and then donation thanks to the people who understand what we are doing.
Yes, very nice. So Mongolian from Mongolia, from within Mongolia, they can support if they like your project, one of your projects.
Yes,
it's totally possible.
It's totally possible. But of course, we have some like screening, like since we are the organization to promote child rights. We have some companies that with whom we cannot work, unfortunately,
of course.
like which might have a risk to harm children.
Right.
Like tobacco.
Yeah, like
we have some list.
alcohol, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So there's restriction, but
Yes. But still, we are
it's
still
possible.
open. Yes.
Open for donations
Exactly.
within Mongolia as well. Right. So let's talk about the future now. What are the future planned projects?
Well, since this primary education project is ending in this March, we also developed new proposal about inclusive education.
Inclusive
Yes.
education. Can you tell our audience what that is?
Yes. So, as name by itself, says, it's for including everyone. So mainly, we have regular school and special school where only the children with disabilities go. But our aim is try to include everyone, regardless of their needs, like children with disabilities, children with learning difficulties, ethnic minority, very poor family children, and herder children, etc., etc. By looking at everyone, the fact that everyone has a different need. And to do so, we really have to prepare the teachers, staff, and parents, and government.
So, in my imagination, when you talked about inclusive, everyone needs to be included in the education system. I'm thinking about a school that has the children with disabilities, regular children, or children from poor family, and everyone is one school, learning same thing. Right.
But for example, like the Mongolia has a very high enrollment rate for primary school, like around 95%, and maybe even more right now. But the last 5% has been there, outside the school system. And we have in Mongolia we have this non-formal education system, like which is called Lifelong Education Center. Lifelong Education Center.
Lifelong Education Center. Right.
So their students are like either dropout children from the regular schools, and also children with heavy disabilities and other special needs.
Right.
So they are the place to receive out of school children and transfer the students to regular school whenever they are ready.
Wow.
But this kind of hub center has a very difficult condition because they have in a small classroom, which is mainly in the one room of the regular school. They're renting one classroom.
Oh, wow, really?
And then they are in the small classroom, they have like 15 to 20 kids with different ages, different, and who are studying for different grades, curriculum by one teacher.
That must be very hard
Yes.
for the teachers and educators.
Exactly. So we are also trying to tackle to kind of improve the condition of that center. Yes. So we are looking at the regular schools capacity and also lifelong education center and also community awareness because at the community level, inclusion has to take place, not only within the school.
Yes, of course.
And then lastly, advocacy. Advocate government.
Yes.
So that they can take over some of the good, practices.
To bring them in.
Exactly. So from the beginning, I think that those 3 projects that I mentioned have, something in common, sustainability from the beginning. So we have to work together with the government from the beginning, and then slightly, gradually hand over the best practices to the people. Exactly.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For very interesting takes and very important data as well, information about the children in Mongolia, education system in Mongolia. And thank you for your good deed you're doing in Mongolia as well.
Thank you so much. And I think what we're trying to do is kind of putting the spotlight on those children who are left behind or marginalized children. And then, because we have limited budget and the duration and target area. So I think our role as an NGO is generate evidence so that government can, scale up. So those 2, main roles has to be understood and also work together, and it worked very well.
Yes, of course. Well, we are more than welcome to work on the media side to bring the information, bring the awareness, bring the awareness to the community.
Yes.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And I wish you good health.
Thank you, you too.
And that's all for today. Thank you for being with us. You're watching Today. We will see you on next Tuesday with more news and updates. Have a good one. Bye-bye.